Boop. Happy Monday. Today is Monday, August the 23rd, 2021. Today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 11, 1 Kings 5:13 through 18, Ephesians 5:21 through 5:21 through 6:9, and then Psalm 119:97 through 104, and Nehemiah 9, 1 through 1 through 15 rather, ending with Ephesians again. And so I'm going to look at Nehemiah and talk about separation. The story here, I don't know if you understand what the story of Nehemiah is. If you've just read this text today and not read the whole book of Nehemiah, if you've not read the Old Testament, you might not be sure what's going on. But long story short, Israel had this history of running after foreign gods, running after foreign powers, running into idolatry. Not that it was exclusively the fault of the foreign powers or the foreign gods. There was a problem with them, their sinfulness that led them to that. And think about willful disobedience. And because of that, God had taken the land away from them and taken them out of the land and put them in this fun place called Babylonia. It's what we call the Babylonian captivity. Nehemiah and also the book of Ezra take place at the end of that timeout that God gave them, where they've come back to the land. The people who were taken out of Judea into captivity are then, because the Babylonians are no longer in power. Now it's like the Medes and Persians are in power, and they're like, oh, hey, we don't want you hanging around here. Go on back. Rebuild your city, rebuild your temple to your God. And that's where Nehemiah is here in this story. And at this point, they've rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. They've kind of rebuilt the temple, but it's nothing anywhere near where it was when like Solomon built it. And they are dedicating it, and they're dedicating themselves to the task of just overall being more faithful people. And so they separate themselves from it says foreigners in the midst, but the other nations that are represented there with them. And so then they come and they stand alone before God. Now, part of this is that they have this idea of purity, that they need to be separate from all these other nations. But also, I think part of it is that they need to stand alone before God and take responsibility for what got them in this place in the first place, to confess their sins that had gotten them to this point. It's the sins that had, like I said, led them to foreign gods and into the hands of a foreign nation eventually, because God was like, oh, you like them so much, why don't you go live with them? And then they confess. So they separate themselves, and then they stand before God and they confess their sins. But then they also confessed the God to whom they had faith in. So they confessed their sins, and then they confessed the nature of this God against whom they had sinned. And basically they talk about all the incredible things that he had done for them and for their ancestors that even got them to the point of having this promised land. So they confess their sins, but they confess the God in whom they put their faith. They confess the reason for this faith, that God has shown himself faithful time and time again, even when they have not. So we have this separation and this confession, and it's, that we should practice that as a part of our lives, but we don't really as Christians like we should. That, we should confess on a regular basis to God the ways that we've messed up and the ways that we have been unfaithful to him, even though he has been time and time again faithful to us. We should set ourselves apart from and we should confess this God that kind of stands against the way the world would have things to be. It sets us apart from a world that wants neither of those things, doesn't want that kind of honesty, and doesn't want to deal with the idea that there might be a God who, I don't know, could maybe say that things should be a certain way. It sets us apart as a people who confess God and confess faith in this person. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Get out, enjoy the day, and we'll talk to you later. Boop.